Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ria Aguinaldo with the City of San Diego's Economic Development Department. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. Just wanted to go over some housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. After the session, attendees will receive an email with the recording, which can be downloaded, along with a copy of the presentation and resources from our presenters. We will also have a question and answer session at the very end. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat box at any time. You'll note that there is a Q&A box, and we are working to disable that as it can get a bit confusing to kind of toggle between two different fields for input. So please just type your questions into the chat. And then lastly, please keep yourself on mute unless you're called upon to speak. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to Elizabeth Studebaker. Liz?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ria. My name is Liz Studebaker. I'm Assistant Deputy Director with the City of San Diego's Economic Development Department. As you know, today's session is focused on best practices for power washing and water conservation, and is specifically designed for business districts, MADs, and PBID managers and service providers. Joining us today from the Economic Development Department are Ria Aguinaldo, who just introduced herself, Michelle Munoz, and I believe also we have joining Alex Southard, Viridiana Quintana, and Luz Ramirez. I'm sorry if I missed anyone on our team. Before we dive into presentations, we would love to know who's here. If you can please take a moment, include your name, organization, or company, and the business district or districts that you're associated with into the chat. That would be fantastic. Thank you, Yolanda, for doing that right off the bat.
How you guys doing? My name is Ricky Sanchez. I was with South Bay Power Washing. I currently we work with Downtown Partnership. We also work with Hillcrest MAD,
okay, and
we're also doing the Downtown San Diego Partnership.
Okay, great. If you're maybe on your phone and not able to put your information in the chat, that's fine. But anyone that's able to type it in the chat, we would love to have a record of everyone attending today. Thank you. And thank you again, everyone, for your time today. Before we get started, we're just going to do a quick overview of the agenda. So welcome and introductions we're doing right now. Best management practices for power washing is going to be presented by the city's Stormwater Department. And then we're going to move on to water conservation regulations and compliance presented by the Public Utilities Department of the city. And then we're going to move over to the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board on why are BMPs required for power washing. And then we're going to end with contract compliance and subcontractors presented by me. And then we're doing a contractor spotlight with the Hillcrest Business Improvement Association. And then we should have plenty of time for questions and answers. So I'd like to ask that each presenter briefly introduce themselves at the start of their section. And once you're done, you can just hand it off to the next presenter. So up first, I'd like to introduce Victoria Kalkirtz with the City of San Diego Stormwater Department. Vicki?
Started off muted, of course. Hey, everybody. I'm Vicki Kalkirtz with the City of San Diego Stormwater Department. I'm the Stormwater Compliance Manager over the policy and enforcement teams. So thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to present to you today. I'm going to be discussing power washing only from the stormwater perspective, and specifically stormwater regulations, proper best management practices to prevent runoff, and what not to do. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to start out with some of the very basics of stormwater. A lot of people are still not aware that stormwater is not treated at a wastewater treatment plant. It's discharged from our streets, rooftops, driveways, etc., into the nearest storm drain outfall that ultimately ends up in the ocean, but sometimes it goes through our streams, rivers, bays before it gets there. This graphic actually does a really good job of illustrating what our storm drain system includes and how runoff works. The storm drain system includes a lot more things than you might think. It includes the curb, gutter, street, alley, inlet pipes, channels, brow ditches, all part of the storm drain system. Some streets don't even have pipes or inlets for like many blocks. So sometimes water will have to travel a long ways before it gets to the closest inlet or drain pipe. So because of that, discharges of anything other than rainwater and a few very limited exceptions are illegal. You might even see in places like in North Park, you'll see like a big dip in the street that your car has to go over to. That is also part of the storm drain system because water sometimes has to go a very long distance. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm not going to get into all the details of our stormwater regulations. Our permit is several hundred pages long. I don't want to bore you with all of it, but I will touch on a couple of the regulations that guide why we're here today. So the City of San Diego and all other local jurisdictions are covered under what's called the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System permit, known as the MS4 permit. And this guides and regulates how we handle stormwater that leaves our city system and enters into the receiving waters and ultimately the ocean. So the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board, which Laurie is here representing, and we'll talk a little bit later, has jurisdiction over these waters and what we are allowed to discharge into them. So this permit includes specific regulations regarding what is allowed and what is not allowed to leave our storm drain system, especially in dry weather. And the permit also requires the city and all the other jurisdictions included under the permit to pass a municipal code that prohibits all these kinds of discharges, requires BMPs for any pollution or potentially pollution generating activity, and enforcement actions, including escalating enforcement, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we're required to do is to have what's called minimum BMPs, or as we said earlier, best management practices for many activities. And in fact, all these BMPs, I believe there's 39 of them, 36 or 39, is actually part of our municipal code. So they are a requirement. So today we're just going to focus on the power washing discharges. This is covered by BMP number 3, which is to properly dispose of process and wash water. And as you can see here, it states all process and wash water must be contained, captured, reused, or properly disposed of. It also notes that wash water from processes such as power washing, hosing down, etc., shall not be disposed to city storm drains, curbs, and gutters, or any other part of the storm drain system. Next slide, please. All right, as part of our stormwater program, we have a dedicated stormwater and code enforcement team. They only handle stormwater violations of the municipal code. So any violations of the code will receive some kind of enforcement action, depending on what it is, and depending if you have had enforcement actions in the past. It can start with an education letter, it can be monetary fines, it can just be a notice of violation. It can even go up to civil penalties and even criminal charges for some of the most egregious situations. These are considered like environmental crimes in some cases. So every time there's a violation from the same entity or the same property, the enforcement action escalates to the next level. So it could have been a letter at one point or a notice of violation only. Then it would go up to a citation, $500, $700, etc. And our intention is just to stop the discharge, not to punish people. So we do try to work with violators to provide information to assist them, to help them understand how to prevent pollution and stop the discharge. And again, these citations can start at $100, they go to $250, $500, $750, etc. We have a matrix here that shows you like how we calculate it depending on the type of violation, and then we go from there. Next slide, please. So a big part of our enforcement process is educating the public and businesses about what is not allowed and what our minimum BMPs are. So we have a lot of fact sheets. We've got a great website. You should check it out, thinkblue.org. And we have outreach materials for each one of the BMPs that we mentioned. Anytime we do enforcement actions, we provide these. So it has all the information that you need of what not to do. And I do want to note that our officers and our office cannot give any specific advice or tell you exactly what products you should be using or exactly how to do your power washing or whatever other activity it is. We cannot endorse any particular practice, any product. Every situation is different, and that's not really our place. You might have different equipment than someone else. That's not our place. Our place is just to tell you no runoff, no wash water from the process can enter into our storm drain system. Next slide, please. So one of the very first BMPs is dry cleaning. So if there's any litter in the street, if there's any leaf litter, trash, sediment, you need to actually sweep that up or vacuum it up or however you do it. You can't just use a leaf blower and blow it across the street. It has to be removed first before you do any kind of power washing. So that way it doesn't travel along with the water throughout our storm drain system. And sometimes, if business owners are doing this type of regular cleaning, you might not even need power washing. And here you can see some examples of using an absorbent to pick up oil, it's sweeping up some debris out front, that type of thing. Next slide, please. So here's a few examples of different kinds of inlet protection. This is a really common thing that people use. They have different kinds of mats. Again, we're not endorsing any of these particular products. We're just showing you some different examples. One of them has a cover with sandbags so it doesn't move around. Some of the covers are kind of sticky. This one in the lower right, it's just a berm to try to prevent water from going down the inlet. So this is a really great thing to do. Sometimes, like even if you're close to the inlet and like maybe a vacuum, you don't want it to fail, put the inlet cover over there and you'll be covered. But again, we're not endorsing any particular product. Next slide, please. All right, so this is wash water disposal. So we first encourage people to direct their wash water to the landscaped area if they can. Like in this upper left-hand corner, you can see it's just very conveniently, there's grass right there. I know that's not always an option, especially downtown in some of these more urban areas. So we also encourage you to collect the water in any way that you can. Some of these are a little fancier than others. I think this one in the middle actually has like a reclaiming system. It vacuums it and then they actually reuse the water. This little guy in the upper right hand, he's got like a sort of a circle around it and a vacuum that sucks it all up and nothing's getting around it. And the one in the lower left and lower right, you can see it's sort of like a bladder and a vacuum system together. And it is okay to have the water come off a driveway or off to the curb into the gutter, but it has to be collected and it can't like be traveling or running off down the street. Next slide, please. So this is what absolutely not to do. You can see in all of these situations, there are no BMPs in place whatsoever. There's no vacuums, no berms, nothing stopping the water from running off the street. This one in the lower right-hand corner especially has a lot of sediment. It seems like going down the street. Some of these even look like they might have some kind of cleaning product in it. So any one of these would be getting a violation from us. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Or actually, I think this might be my last one. Never mind. Sorry. I just wanted to mention a couple of other things. Power washing is definitely more of a two-person job to keep those BMPs in place and effective. If you leave like large pools of water behind, you may need to go back and make sure you vacuum them up. I know a lot of the curbs sometimes have like low spots, and if there's a ton of water there, it might be appropriate to go back and vacuum that up if you have your vacuum. And I just want to note too, just because you have a vacuum in the curb, it has to be effective. That's not always enough. So if you have two of you, one paying attention or in charge of the BMPs, watching the vacuum, make sure it's actually vacuuming up or reclaiming the water. The other person can go down the street and do what they need to do. But just having a BMP there with you doesn't mean that you're actually that it's working. It has to be effective. So generally, we say two people should be on most of these sites, especially the larger ones. All right, so that was all that I have. So I will pass it on to Mike at Public Utilities.
Hi, thank you for joining today. My name is Mike Ismail. I'm currently the Supervising Management Analyst with the Public Utilities Department. And next slide, please. Our city has been encouraging water conservation for more than 30 years. In fact, San Diego is recognized as one of the most water efficient cities in the state. The reason is simple. We have little water. Most of our supply has to be purchased and transported from hundreds of miles away. Because of this, the city has created programs, rebates, and regulations to help us use water wisely. Next slide, please. This slide basically explains the city's water conservation ordinance. There's a QR code, as you can see. The municipal code prohibits wasteful uses of water. For example, sidewalks, driveways, or parking lots can't be washed down with a hose. They must be cleaned with a power washer or a hose that has a shut-off nozzle. Even then, it's only allowed when there's an immediate safety or sanitation hazard, like spills, odors, or public health risks. Aesthetic cleaning, like just making the pavement look nicer, doesn't qualify. And most importantly, all wash water must be collected and prevented from entering the storm drain system. Next slide, please. One challenge is that the code doesn't define exactly what counts as a safety or sanitation hazard. That's where contractors are expected to use good faith, reasonable review. You should consider factors like visible sanitation needs, high use areas, or whether there's an expert opinion involved. Also, keep in mind the water you use must be collected and the public is watching. Compliance isn't just about following rules, it's about maintaining community trust, and violations can be enforced by both the city and the state, with penalties ranging from administrative fines to criminal cases. Next slide, please. If customers or contractors don't follow these mandatory provisions, they're subject to penalties. These can be administrative, civil, or even criminal, depending on the severity. The bottom line is that water conservation regulations aren't optional. They are enforceable laws. Staying compliant protects businesses from costly fines and ensures we're using water responsibly. Next slide, please. Finally, during declared drought emergency, the additional restrictions may apply. For example, in the last drought, the state actually prohibited pressure washing with potable water altogether. Only non-potable water was allowed. That shows how serious conservation becomes during shortages and why it's so important to always be prepared to adapt your practices to new regulations. So in summary, water conservation and power washing is about more than efficiency. It's about legal compliance, environmental responsibility, and public accountability. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laurie Walsh. I'm the supervising water resource control engineer over the surface waters branch at the San Diego Water Board. In my branch, we regulate wastewater treatment, stormwater, dredge and fill activities, as well as sewage collection. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you the 5 reasons why using best management practices that are effective, like Vicki mentioned, to address pollutants with this particular activity. You heard Mike mention all the reasons about conserving water, number 1, but number 2, it's to protect water quality. And you can see this figure on the left is the outline of the city of San Diego's jurisdiction, and the yellow and blue and some orange polygons way down in the center of the city there are the district boundaries. The figure on the left shows you how many receiving water bodies are intertwined within the districts that you're responsible for. And the regional board is responsible for protecting water quality and controlling the discharge of pollutants into those receiving water bodies, because we are assigned with the authority to make sure that the uses of those receiving waters are protected. And these 4 main categories are what the board protects. Is the water safe to drink? Is the water safe to swim in? Do the fish and shellfish that get harvested from certain water bodies, are they safe to eat? And are the habitats and ecosystems healthy within these receiving water bodies? Next slide, please. The second reason why it's important that you make sure the best management practices surrounding power washing are effective, as Vicki mentioned, is it's illegal. It's not allowed via your contracts, it's not allowed via your city ordinance, and it's not allowed because it's against state law. Again, Vicki mentioned it's not only the city of San Diego that has this requirement, but it's every municipality within the San Diego Regional Water Board's region, and actually throughout much of the state. And the law that is the support for these requirements is the Clean Water Act. Next slide, please. Not only are people watching, well, we're people too, the regulators, but this is an example of our executive officer that was in La Jolla. This is several years old now, but he was in La Jolla and noticed this particular person pressure washing the sidewalk with absolutely no BMPs. So it's not like, well, so a lot of people, there are people watching, and these are very visible discharges. So it's something that's really important to make sure that your management practices are in place, they're effective. And Vicki, I think that was a perfect thing to mention, is that it's in many cases, it's more than a one-person job. This is a small area. And I think this person, that was like their first customer of their first, they just started this business, and they ended up having my executive officer walk down the street, which he did, make contact with them and called me, and I called Vicki, and the city responded to this within the hour. I think that doesn't always happen. Takes us a little bit longer sometimes, but in this case, it was fairly rapid. And Vicki, can you remind me, did they get a notice of violation in this case? I thought
Yes,
they did.
they got a citation as well as a notice of violation.
Okay. All right. Next slide, please. And the fourth reason why this is important to have effective control measures in place is because the outcome matters. This is La Jolla, and I have a picture on the left of the district polygon in blue, and you can see on the pink lines that are outlining the coastline are the sections of the receiving water, in this case the Pacific Ocean, that are impaired. So the water board does a lot of monitoring, cities do monitoring to give us information about when the receiving water is not supporting beneficial uses because it has too much of a pollutant present. And in this case, it's bacteria. So I think it's something that all of us, when we know why we have to take extra effort to control the discharge of pollutants that get into the curb gutter, it makes more sense to us that it's important that these control measures are in place and that they're working, because our discharges are causing these water bodies to be unhealthy. And in this case, it's these locations in La Jolla, and the particular pollutant is bacteria. Next slide, please. Let's go to Mission Bay. Again, you see the maintenance districts, or the district polygons, in blue and yellow in this location, and the particular receiving water that these areas drain to. Now, hopefully you're all asking yourselves, well, which water body do I discharge to? So maybe you could find out, well, okay, I know that the Pacific Ocean shoreline right down from my district is impaired for bacteria or trash. Well, you could call Vicki's group, and I also saw Brianna Menkes online, that also with the Stormwater team. And you can ask your city staff, what receiving water do I discharge to, and what is it impaired for? And this way you can go and check your contractor, or at least have the knowledge for yourself that, all right, I'm going to make sure these BMPs are in place. I capture all my wash water, and I am not contributing to the impairment. So here, Rose Creek is impaired for pesticides, bacteria, and then toxicity, the Pacific Ocean shoreline for trash, and Mission Bay bacteria. We all know Mission Bay is a highly used recreational location. So here the water board is needing to make sure that this water is safe to swim, safe to recreate in. And in order to do that, we have to control the discharges of pollution into these areas. Now, pressure washing is one of many, but it is all incumbent upon us to control the discharges of pollutants that we are responsible for. Next slide, please. San Diego Bay and the downtown area. The shoreline, San Diego Bay shoreline at G Street is impaired for bacteria. Switzer Creek for a set of metals, copper, zinc, and lead. And Choyas Creek for pesticides, trash, copper, and zinc. Next slide, please. So I mentioned to you at the very beginning, kind of 4 main categories. Is the water safe to swim? Is the water safe to drink? Do fish and shellfish that get harvested from those water bodies, are they safe to eat? And are the habitats and ecosystems healthy? Well, those 4 broad categories break down to these 26 beneficial uses. So there could be a whole handful or 2 handfuls of these beneficial uses that the receiving water to which your district discharges to is supposed to support. The receiving water body is supposed to be healthy enough, both in its chemistry and its biology and its physical characteristics, to support these beneficial uses. And that's what the regional board is charged to do. And that's why we issue permits to people who discharge waste to waters of the state or US. It's to protect these beneficial uses. Next slide, please. And finally, I have a request. We need your help. There are 251 impaired water bodies or water body segments in this graphic here throughout the San Diego region. And again, although power washing is maybe not the sole source and sole reason for these impairments, it does contribute to it in some of these locations if those best management practices are not used and if they're not effective. Vicki also mentioned when a significant amount of water is left in the gutter or in the cracks between the gutter and the street, or a low point in the street, it is incumbent upon the person doing the power washing to be sure that they go back and capture as much as practicable to be effective to control the pollutants. Remember, we're washing sidewalks to what? To clean them. To clean them, why? Because something is on there, as Mike mentioned, that might be impacting public health. It could be a public health issue. So usually those sorts of pollutants are not super great if they get into the creek or river because there is no treatment in the storm drain system. With that, I'll turn it back over to Liz.
Thank you, Laurie. Up next, I'm going to take a moment to bring your attention, mostly a reminder for most of you, to a few sections of the MAD contract that are applicable to power washing. The PBID, the downtown PBID contract, has a comparable section that refers to the city's stormwater pollution prevention program and the jurisdictional urban runoff management plan. Please make sure you review the scope of your agreement, which is Exhibit D, including Section F on sidewalk steam cleaning shown here. Section G, which discusses the requirements of district managers and subcontractors, provides more detail about your responsibilities and about the manner in which services that are carried out, such as maintaining a clean work area, maintaining, methods of performing work, and safety requirements. Hopefully, throughout this presentation, you've been able to get a sense maybe of where you stand with respect to compliance, and hopefully we'll be able to make immediate adjustments if needed. Also, please note that if you're out of compliance with any of the components of applicable regulations, you're out of compliance with your MAD contract. We're going to do our best ongoing to continue helping to educate you on regulations and best practices, but being out of compliance with your agreement could result in a number of actions taken by the city, including not renewing your contract. Slide. On the screen here, you'll see a section specifically discussing compliance of subcontractors and making sure that they are properly insured with respect to your scope of work, or again, that's Exhibit B in your agreement. Language like this can be found throughout the agreement and relates to all aspects of your subcontractor's work. Best practices include things like spot checks, regular reports, and ongoing communication. Another example of a best practice is requiring subcontractors to report any interaction with enforcement agencies, including complaints and/or violations. We have seen subcontractors on occasion withhold that information from our primary contractor, which puts the entire city contract at risk. So now I'd like to introduce one of our contractor who has had some experience that we can all learn from about coming into compliance. I think he's on the line. I think he's maybe on the road, but I'm happy to introduce Ben Nichols with the Hillcrest Business Improvement Association, if he's on. Ben?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am happy to chat a little bit about our program today. I apologize for the background noise. I am on the road. My name is Benjamin Nichols, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kalkirtz Business Association. I also want to introduce Ricky, our contractor from South Bay Power Washing, who's on the line, and we are happy to take questions at the appropriate time. The Hillcrest Business Association experienced rapid growth over the last 3 years, and one of our growing pains early on was our power washing program. When we scaled up the program, our old contractor had been unable to scale up with us. After several complaints and fines, we refocused and took several critical steps that led us to a new philosophy. First, I personally spent a lot of time and many difficult meetings with our friends at City Stormwater and the San Diego, the California Water Board, to personally learn and understand the code and the best management practices they were looking for. It's important for the city contractor, such as a bid or a MAD, not just the power washing contractor, but the city contractor, to understand the stormwater standards on a granular level. Second, we engaged with a new contractor, service provider, South Bay Power Washing. This power washing contractor was familiar with the city standards and the stormwater standards, and had the organizational capacity to meet our new enlarged service area. I spent many mornings, early mornings, with Ricky from South Bay, observing and learning about the reclamation process and the deployment of the mandated BMPs. My philosophy was to make it my personal mission to understand the specifics of the program, the BMP, the equipment used, and the challenges on the contractor side, so that I could check quality along with our contractor. I wanted to personally be the backstop to the contractor so that we were all in it together, and I wasn't just sending them out into the neighborhoods. We do have a lot of neighborhood busybodies, and they are always out on the street watching. And I thought if they could be out on the street, then I could be out on the street just as easily, and I could double check everybody's work. Engaging with the city and the state BMPs enabled us to augment their standards with our own best practices, and we deployed a number of our own quality control devices to augment those required by regulators. One of those was identifying and documenting stormwater issues that existed on the sidewalks before our crew started cleaning. This ensured that issues that exist before we get out the power washer, such as standing rainwater or over irrigation, those issues would not be conflated with our work. And so we document those issues before we start working, but we also make sure that we have cleaned up after we've finished working. Another of our own best practices is a door hanger leave behind flyer. On each doorknob of the business district, as we clean the neighborhood, we leave a door hanger, letting people know that we've cleaned their sidewalks, but also encouraging them to check our work and contact us if there's a problem. We want to make sure that our members know what we've done, but also they can see whether we're doing it correctly. We want to encourage the busybodies. Next, we also set up a system each morning where our custodial team lead checks the work conducted from the night before for both cleaning quality, but also indications of stormwater compliance. Because our team lead and myself understand the process, we're able to check the work quality and conformance with the VMPs. Finally, as I mentioned, it is worth noting that there are a lot of folks out on the street watching in Hillcrest, and our Maintenance Assessment District Steering Committee is no exception. They are involved checking our work, they're out watching us, and we encourage them to watch us. We encourage them to be part of the process as well. Thanks for your time. Liz, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Ben. If you don't mind hanging on for a bit, we're going to have questions soon, and some of our participants may have direct questions for you. Thank you. That's very helpful. So here we have, just wanted to provide direct contact information for all of the presenters today, including some QR codes for links to relevant information. I think that Ria has already included many of those in the chats. If you want to make sure you're keeping an eye on the chats, she's been dumping in helpful links throughout the webinar today. Additionally, I want to make sure everyone knows that the Economic Development Department does have a webpage that is dedicated to all kinds of resources for businesses and business districts. And we update that business resources page regularly. We update it when new regulations go into place, when new policies are passed, when new programs are introduced. And so I just want to encourage everyone to check back on that. I think Ria just put that in the chats as well. Check back on that regularly. If you have any questions about any of the resources listed there, myself, Ria, Michelle, Alex, everybody from the economic development team, Sean Carafin, who's not here today, we're all available to talk to you about any of those resources on the city's website, and help you solve problems for your districts, for your members. And please feel free to share that link to the business resources page with your property owners and your business owners as well. So I think that is pretty much concludes the more formal portion of the webinar. It's 2:38 right now. We have more time allotted all the way to 3:30. So we are more than happy to answer questions. We're always available, just one email or phone call away. And really this webinar today was intended to connect you directly with the most knowledgeable people regarding this topic of water conservation, power washing, and keeping our business districts clean and beautiful, and also protecting our shared waterways. Before we go into questions, I wonder if any of the presenters, if you have any final comments or anything that came up maybe after you spoke that you would like to add before we go to questions? Hearing none.
Well, I will.
Oh, go. Okay.
I put it in the chat, but I just want Ben to know that that is impressive. That made me so happy to hear what an active approach you are taking, and I absolutely know that's going to make a difference. And I just wanted to tell you that I appreciate that on behalf of the Water Board. Thank you very much for doing that. I think that's what it does take in some cases because your district is pretty large, but thank you very much. And I did want to also say for the other folks that one thing that does help is photo documentation is also helpful. If you can take pictures of your area before or after, it's very easy. It's inexpensive to do, and it's something that you have then if someone does come by and mention that you didn't do a good job, you have that already collected photo documentation.
Ben, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Thanks for that, Laurie. Thanks, Liz. I appreciate you saying that. We definitely use photo documentation. We do, and Ricky can speak to this if he wants to, but before and after pictures of everything. And then we use those pictures, especially the afterwards pictures, to inform our custodial team the next morning when we go out and check for the compliance, but also the quality.
Great.
Yeah, I would just add to that too. Sometimes it's really helpful for us that if you have photos of your BMPs in place and your staff using them. That's when time stamped. That's very helpful for us in any kind of enforcement situation. So we can show that you guys were using the proper BMPs at the time you said you were using them.
Okay, questions? Ria, am I forgetting anything?
Nope.
Okay, looks like we have a question
go.
coming in from Enhance La Jolla. How does the water get processed after collected by the contractor? How are these locations made available? It would be advantageous to have a processing center closer to our MAD. I don't believe I have an answer for that. Anyone on the panel?
Typically,
go ahead, Laurie.
well, typically, they get collected in a vessel, and the contractor takes it back to a yard and would either discharge it to the sanitary sewer, or perhaps there is some other sort of treatment system they may have at a yard to clean it, filter it, perhaps reuse the water. But that's probably the extent that I know. I've done a lot of YouTube researching on it. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to mention contractors, they're required to collect all wash water and dispose it properly. So they might want to look up, see if on our website, or they can contact us for the nearest approved disposal site. We might have that listed, but I can't confirm, but I would need to check, but it's probably there.
Thank you, Mike and Laurie. Thank you. Ricky, do you have a question or comment?
Comment. So for the disposal of the water, we used an environmental company that comes to our yard and picks up our water, and we pay them. And what they do is they decide where this water, what facility goes. They do the testing, if it has sink or it has whatever it has, so the water goes to different areas. It can get to Arizona, go to LA, but that's the way we use it. We use an environmental company that picks up our water. That's how we discharge our water.
That sounds like proper disposal to me.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Ricky, it looks like your hand's still up. I'm not sure if you still have another question, and Pedro's?
Yes, is it possible to discharge wastewater in vegetation that is not in certain type of vegetations?
Yes, I would say it is. Depends on how much water you have, and you don't want it to run off from there either. You would want it to make sure that you would soak, it would soak into it. You would want to maybe be careful depending on what you think might be in that water. If it is too high in metals, or if it is really laden with bacteria, that could be an issue. Depends on what you've washed and how, I guess, dirty it is. But
yeah, I would agree with that. And obviously you have to have permission of the property owner to do that. You can't just pull over and try to dispose of it wherever you feel like it. You have to have the permission. And if there's like paint chips or something in it, I would be very careful about that.
Got another question coming in. Is there any change to the release of groundwater policy? Groundwater release from buildings and residential areas causes slip hazards at crosswalks.
Well, I'm not totally sure what you're referring to, but if you mean groundwater discharges are sometimes allowable. It just sort of depends. It has to be uncontaminated. And in some cases, you might need a permit, but groundwater discharges to the storm drain system is generally allowable, but we have to determine that before we would allow it. Or deem it allowable, I suppose.
Thank you. Ben?
I've got a softball question for you guys. One of the things that I think people don't think about often and can trip people up is overspray. And what's the line between overspray and runoff, and how do you define that? What is acceptable overspray and what is not?
Ben, you mean overspray from the power washing activity then?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's like, yeah.
Go ahead, Vicki.
Yeah, I say from our perspective, if it's just wet and it's not going anywhere, that's not like a violation in my book. If it's running down the street, which it really doesn't take much water to start running. I mean, I'm sure you guys all know this. It really doesn't take very much. But if it's just damp because you were steam cleaning and there's no water to collect, there's no water to collect. But if it is, you see the stream of water running down the street and you're not doing anything to collect it or prevent it from going very far, that I would consider, runoff, and that's not allowable. But just some like a damp sidewalk or street that's fine.
Yeah, I would concur with that. The regional board is interested in controlling the discharge of pollutants from these activities and protecting those beneficial uses of the receiving water. So if the concrete is simply wet or the curb and gutter are damp and change color, as long as there's no runoff that are occurring, the pollutants technically aren't getting mobilized and discharged to the receiving water.
Okay, good questions, everyone.
Liz, I wanted to bring up maybe two other things, just because we've spent a substantial amount of time on this issue, just responding to the public's complaint, Vicki, myself. These matters have gotten raised all the way to the United States EPA. The secretary has been involved, permitting staff has been involved, State Water Resources Control Board staff has been involved. So it's gone really all the way up the environmental chain, if you will. So the learning experience from Ben, what Vicki's mentioning and what I'm sharing is we've kind of tested it through all those levels. So you're getting the best of the best as far as suggestions and recommendations and things like this. And what was my other thing that I want to, Thank goodness we haven't gotten to this point yet, because the city of San Diego, and particularly Vicki's group in Stormwater, I don't work as closely with the EDD folks as I have now, but they've been responsive to the water board's requests to either elevate enforcement when appropriate, and Vicki's team has done that. You don't want it to get to the point where, let me say it a different way. When my last slide requested your help, that's really where the water board would like to start. It is at the ground floor. It is with the contractors and you all as managers of these contracts in your districts. Because if things go unattended, unresponded to, the discharges occur without BMPs, without effective BMPs, the San Diego Water Board treats the city of San Diego as one city. It is not separate departments. You've heard from 3 of them, but the permit is issued to the city of San Diego as a whole. And the fines from the water board can get very pricey very quickly. I appreciate Vicki and her team being as responsive that they have been, and Liz's team as well. With Sean, very responsive, and that is really appreciated, because at the end of the day, the water board has an enforcement arm, but really we would prefer to just control the pollutants. You saw 251 creeks, rivers, streams, lakes, oceans. I'm sure all of you looked at those maps and have swam in that ocean or kayaked in that bay. And we're trying to make sure it's protected. It's healthy to swim and habitats and ecosystems are safe. So that's the whole point here. It's not that we want to be a pain in everybody's side because the gravel bag is in the wrong spot or the water trickled past a particular cofferdam. It's because those water bodies are not in good shape to protect the beneficial uses. So I hope that makes more sense to everybody today.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have any formal closing remarks except that this is likely not the last time we're going to have this conversation and do this educational webinar. We know that all of your districts have new staff coming on board. You have on occasion new contractors working with your organization. So this is ongoing education. It should be kind of regular part of our conversation as business district managers. And again, don't feel shy about reaching out to any of us in the Economic Development Department. We can help you troubleshoot which of the other experts here you need to talk to if you're not sure really which department or which agency is most appropriate, depending on the issue that you're experiencing or the question that you have. So I think with that, are we wrapping it up, guys? Okay. Thank you again, everyone, so much for your time today. Try to make this as painless as possible while addressing a very serious, very, very serious issue.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.